He's outright saying that management essentially don't know what the fuck they're doing at Microsoft. They have absolutely no idea how to run the company. What fucking games right now, realistically, can you say, anyone out there who follows the gaming industry, what are the big games that Microsoft is making right now? All right? The people who really should be losing their jobs are the people in management. Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, and all the other executives who championed the Activision Blizzard acquisition. Well, one thing's for sure, after today, I don't think anyone's going to call me an Xbot or Xbox fanboy. I'm pretty upset, honestly. And I just don't even know what's going to happen anymore. The big news. Are you ready? I've been trying, if you haven't noticed, I've been trying to delay talking about it because I'm not happy. I'm actually quite upset.
Now, I know that we just started the clip, so it's kind of early to already be irritated with DSP, but this behavior right here is the exact reason why I can't stand when he talks about video games. He loves to act as though he actually cares about what's going on in the video games industry, whether it be games coming out or people losing their jobs or a studio shutting down in this instance. And it's all just so fake, it's so performative, it's just grating. And hopefully now that I've pointed it out for you, you can go through the rest of this clip with me and appreciate this segment for what it really is, a performance.
Breaking news. Microsoft is closing multiple game developers this morning. Okay? 4, I believe. Yeah, here we go. Here's the 4 that are closing. Arcane Austin. And Arcane Austin is responsible for the recent massive failure Redfall. The Elder Scrolls Online co-developer Roundhouse. So they were a company that was working exclusively on Elder Scrolls Online. They're getting laid off. Alpha Dog, who's made Mighty Doom. If you don't remember, that was the game that was like Doom with like the cutesy characters or whatever. And I think that was, I don't know if it ever hit consoles, but I think it was a mobile game. And now here's the big one, the one that everyone is like, what? Are you ready? Tango Gameworks, the makers of the recent actual smash hit Hi-Fi Rush. What?
I mean, what is there to be confused about, DSP? You just read the names of these studios that got closed down. Are you genuinely surprised that Microsoft, a mega corp, are shutting down a bunch of studios that they're not pleased with the products of? I mean, the only question you could really have is about Tango Gameworks, because they did just put out Hi-Fi Rush, which I've heard good things about, but even then, you're only batting 1 for 4. Are we really gonna act confused about these other 3 studios? I mean, Arcane Austin made, what, Deathloop, which I didn't hear anybody ranting and raving over except for critics, and then they made Redfall, which everybody knows exactly how that one went. So it doesn't really seem like anybody's losing anything. And I know that they made Prey, but that was so long ago, I highly doubt that that talent is even there anymore, because they definitely didn't show that same talent when it came to their last 2 games. And I'd be lying if I even told you that I knew that those other 2 studios existed before right now. But after finding out that one of them was in charge of a Doom mobile game and the other one was in charge of Elder Scrolls Online content, I genuinely don't give a shit about those either. It would be strange to me if you did though, DSP, because not only are you not generally interested in games, but you're definitely not interested in either of those. So why are we gonna sit here and pretend like we're shocked and appalled by this decision?
Huh? They just made a hit game. Remember? It was the game that everyone was talking about last year, that no one even knew it existed, and then they dropped it on Game Pass. I think it was February 2023, and people played it and were like, whoa, this game is seriously good. So if this is an idea of what Tango Gameworks can do, this is amazing. The game actually won awards for sound design and all kinds of stuff. And they're laying the studio off. Now, to be fair, Tango Gameworks also made The Evil Within 1 and 2, and Hi-Fi Rush was actually a departure for them from their usual formula of content that they would make.
And no matter how good Hi-Fi Rush was or wasn't, I don't know, I didn't play the game, I did hear positive things though. You can go back and find articles at the beginning of 2023 from Xbox saying that they are not very happy with the sales numbers of Hi-Fi Rush. Whether that was because they shadow dropped it or because people just didn't want to pick up the game is up in the air. The only concrete information that we do have is Xbox stating that they weren't happy. And if you combine that with the fact that The Evil Within 2 didn't sell that hot either, it shouldn't be all that shocking that when somebody has to bite the bullet, that unfortunately for whoever works at Tango Gameworks, that they were up on the chopping block.
The Evil Within 1 was a smash hit success. Of course, at that point, if you remember, Shinji Mikami was still working for the company. It was his company to begin with, and it was supposed to be his own edition of a Resident Evil game. It did very well, and then it led them to make a sequel. However, what happened with Evil Within 2, I feel, is probably one of those sad, really infamous mismanagement stories that you hear in the game industry. So Evil Within 2 dramatically improved upon the original game in every way. The graphics were better, the gameplay elements and controls were better, the game opened up and wasn't just linear like the first game, but instead had many open areas you could explore with optional side quests and content. And overall, the plot was better and had a definitive and fun ending. What happened with it? I'll tell you what happened with it. They completely mismarketed it. Unlike Evil Within 1, where you saw ads everywhere, in the stores, on TV, online, there was almost no marketing whatsoever for Evil Within 2. No one even knew it was coming out, besides those following game release schedules. And so when it came out, everyone was like, huh? I didn't even know that was out. And then I played it. I was blown away how good it was. And sadly, no one knew about it. Like, people were learning about the game by coming to my streams. And I was like, what?
And I'm sat here kind of thinking the exact same thing, DSP, what? There definitely was marketing for the Evil Within 2, I remember seeing it. It wasn't nearly as much as the first game, but it for sure existed. I think that the greater problem when it came to the Evil Within 2 is that while a bunch of people, yes, did go out and buy the first game and they played it, unfortunately they walked away with kind of a sour taste in their mouth. Because the story and the way that it ended was kind of regarded and hard to follow. The gameplay wasn't all that refined and got dull after a while. And so a lot of those people just were not interested in picking up the Evil Within 2 regardless of how good the gameplay actually was. And then you get the additional problem of trying to sell people who didn't play the first one a sequel to a game that they never played. Combine all of that with a smaller marketing campaign and yes, I think you are fit to get lower sales. But of course the only factor that DSP can even fathom is marketing because he is such a mark. The dude is quite literally such a consumer that if you just shove enough commercials and jingles in his face, he will consume your product and he will rant and rave to the end of time about how good it is. He might even go on a stream years down the road and start telling people that he can still remember the jingle that you programmed into his brain all of those years ago. I mean, it's been known to happen before.
That's stupid. You know, I don't know what happened, why they marketed the hell out of the first Evil Within. It did really well. Then they decided to just not market the second one, and they just thought it was going to do good. That's not how gaming works. You know, that's not how business works or the industry. It doesn't make a lot of sense at all. Then remember, the next game that they made was Ghostwire Tokyo. And if you remember, Ghostwire Tokyo originally actually was supposed to be Evil Within 3, but then got changed into a totally different project about halfway through, redesigned to be a first-person ghost hunting game. And personally, I think visually it's nice, and the story is interesting. It just gets far too repetitive. Once you get about halfway into the game, it loses its steam because there's nothing else the game offers in the new gameplay department.
Wait, DSP, you are the last person that is allowed to have that criticism when it comes to a game. After your behavior while playing Baldur's Gate 3 constantly complaining about them adding new mechanics and new features for you to interact with, you're not allowed to complain about games not adding new mechanics throughout the game anymore. Because you yourself said that about halfway through the game that you just want to have experienced all of the mechanics the game has to offer so you can just find your rhythm, find your flow and get comfortable. So I guess we'll just have to add this to the ever-growing list of things that DSP is flip-flopping on. I'll tell you, nothing is more irritating to me than inconsistency when it comes to one's own opinions and expectations. I mean, you're literally the one that is defining what your expectations are. You're the one that's in charge of what you enjoy. And you can't even be held to that? I said it once, I can say it 1,000 times, there's no winning with DSP. He will never be happy when it comes to anything in the games industry.
But I mean, anytime, all right, that you hear of studios closing, you're sad. All right. But this is what? The 6th or 7th time in the last 4 months that we have heard of this happening in the games industry. And is it just me, or are we seeing a pattern now? Since Microsoft has bought Activision Blizzard, they just keep doing layoffs after layoffs after layoffs after layoffs.
A bunch of companies in the games industry have started laying people off after Xbox bought Activision Blizzard. DSP. Are those all related as well? Or is there just a very large change happening in the industry shortly after a major event has occurred? I'm sure by now that everybody's been told at least 100 times that correlation does not always equal causation. And I just want to point out for the record, because DSP said that I had to feel a certain way, I am not immediately inclined to be disheartened by some of these studios being closed down. In fact, more often than not, I feel very indifferent, because very often so many of these studios that are closing down I've never played a single game of, and then when I go to find out what games they did actually make, I'm still not interested in ever playing them. So why would I let this affect me, DSP? These are people that I will never interact with and have never made a piece of media that I've ever interacted with. I actually find it really dumb to be that upset about these random studios closing. Do you happen to be that upset when your local corner store goes out of business, DSP, a store that you've never been in? When a random mom and pop restaurant restaurant goes out of business in your area, are you going to get on stream and sit here and mope and cry about it? Because I really don't think that you would.
Okay? So, by the way, a lot of people have a lot to say about this. First of all, FYI, Redfall is completely done. After the game only being out for about 1 year, all production has been halted. Redfall's previous update is its last. They're ending all development on the game. Its servers will remain online for players to enjoy. However, there was a planned DLC that people already paid for in kind of a seasonal package, and Microsoft is claiming they're going to do a make-good offer to make up for the fact that the DLC will never exist. What that will be, I have no idea. But dude, at this point, I just got to say to people out there, let this be a cautionary tale. Do not buy these season passes. Because at any moment now, it seems like these game companies can do whatever they want, slash budgets, fire and lay off people, and the next thing you know, you got latched into seasonal content that ain't even going to exist. Right?
Wow, finally something that me and DSP can actually agree on. I hope that everybody that bought the season pass for Redfall or paid for whatever DLC is no longer going to exist does actually learn a lesson that they should not be buying these things before they exist. But at the same time, you should also not be like DSP and pay for DLCs that do actually exist and then just never use them like an MK1, because that's actually a waste of money. But while we're here talking about wasting money and not doing things like DSP, I would also recommend not buying a second copy of a game that you already own on a different platform simply so that you can smurf your Blanca. I know that that's hyper specific, but I'm just going to throw that out there for anybody who was thinking about it.
Like, that's ridiculous. They didn't even let them finish the DLC as promised by the original sales of the game. So that's really sad. So people all over the internet are speaking up about this. First of all, the guy who's the overall head of Arcane, not the guy that's head of Arcane Austin, but I forget his name. I forgot because I had it and I cut it off. Oh, here it is. Dinga Bakaba. He's the actual head of Arcane Studios, all right? Went on social media and actually posted up things that people never expected that the head of a studio would post. Here's what he posted word for word. This is absolutely terrible. Permission to be human. To any executive who may be reading this, a friendly reminder that video games are an entertainment and cultural industry, and your business as a corporation is to take care of your artists and entertainers and help them create value for you. Don't throw us into gold fever gambits. Don't use us as straw men for miscalculations and blind spots. Don't make our work environments Darwinist jungles. You say we make you proud when we make a good game. Well, make us proud when these times are tough. We know you can because we've seen it before.
And while I agree with this person's tweet, it doesn't necessarily sound like the companies that got shut down were making games that Xbox was necessarily proud of. At least not in the sales department, which is very clearly the only department that Xbox is going to care about. So while I agree with the sentiment, and I really do hope that all of these studios manage to be handled better in the future, I'm not surprised that it's very easy for Xbox to make these decisions and cut these studios completely off, given their dissatisfaction with the recent products they've been putting out.
That is scathing. He's outright saying that management essentially don't know what the fuck they're doing at Microsoft. They have absolutely no idea how to run the company. Just listen to what he said, right? Don't throw us into gold fever gambits, right? Hey, this game's going to be a gold rush, everyone. Rush, 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 push, 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 get this game out, right? Don't use us as strawmen for miscalculation and blind spots, right? If you're the management of a major gaming company and you put your eggs in a basket and it doesn't sell, whose fault was that? You're the one who told those fucking people to make that game, right? I hearken this back, all right, to EA and the Mass Effect developer BioWare making Anthem. Literally, BioWare told EA, we don't want to make this game. We are not good at cooperative online experiences. We're good at single-player narrative-based games. Let us make what we can cook. Let us cook our specialty. To which EA said, no, make this game because it's hot now. They ended up putting out Anthem, and it's the biggest flop they've ever made. And now they haven't put out a game in so many years. It's ridiculous, right?
And of course, I think that that's a tragedy, but unfortunately, that's the risk that you take when you get into one of these conglomerate businesses. You get told what to do, and if you don't do the best that you absolutely can and return a product that they're going to be satisfied with, you're going to get the axe, you're going to get the boot. And unfortunately, that's the only thing that can be expected. If you want anything else, then you would unfortunately have to go and work for a different company that is more indie, that isn't one of these big AAA studios. And those are the type of decisions that real people in the real world have to to make all of the time. Sometimes legitimate small-time businesses get bought out by bigger ones, and all of the people that work at those little businesses now have to decide whether they're going to continue to work at the place they've been working or go find new work somewhere else. I know, because I've been in that exact position before. And for anybody that's getting hired into these studios after they get bought by these megacorps, that's kind of what they're signing up for. And while I can wish that that wasn't the case, we don't live in a perfect world, and these are individual decisions that are being made by individual people.
So what essentially Mr. Bakaba is saying is that management at these companies are making these big gambles on these ads and certain genres. Oh, this will print money for us. This will print money for us. This will print money for us. And then when it doesn't, they blame the developers who were ordered to make the game. You're the ones in charge. You're the one steering the ship. This would be the equivalent of a captain of a ship, literally with his hands on the fucking steering wheel, driving it into a cliffside, and then blaming his crew. Why did you do that? Captain, you're the one, you have the fucking helm. What the fuck are you talking about, you idiot?
And I don't think that I have to tell you that this analogy is terrible, as all DSP analogies actually are. I'm more surprised that it's not a sandwich analogy, which is really unfortunate for us. But in this scenario the DSP is presenting us, I don't think that the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer himself, or whoever he wants to put the blame on today, is necessarily in the role of captain of the helm who is literally on the ship. I think that the position that they would actually hold is the owner of some sailing company, and all they do is hire captains, crewmen, and fund them and tell them to go here, go there, deliver supplies, pick up this, and come back. Sometimes their expectations are going to be ridiculous, and the captain is going to have to do whatever the captain has to do at the time to get the job done, and that's the heads of these studios. Now, if at any point the captain or any of the crewmen are no longer interested in carrying out the task and working for this sailing company, they need to go to a different sailing company, or maybe find a different profession altogether. And if that continues to happen, if people continue to refuse to work for this sailing company, or in this case Xbox, then the only thing that can inevitably happen is that this company will go under and they will no longer produce anything. And if that's the way that it has to be, I'm entirely fine with that, and I think that everybody should be, because that's just the way the world works out there. Or at least it should.
You know? And then keep going. Don't make our work environments Darwinist jungles. So essentially survival of the fittest. You know what that means. We all know what's going on in game development. We know the climate. We know how it works. They are forced to be overworked. They are forced to work insane amounts of hours. They are forced to crunch, crunch, crunch. And essentially what he's saying is those who are able to do it seem to be getting rewarded, applauded, you know, promoted. And those who are just normal fucking people and want to have a normal job are being basically told, well, survival of the fittest, too bad, right?
And as much as people love to hate on this, unfortunately, that's how a lot of professions work. A lot of professions are hard and grueling, and you have to be willing to put in the crunch, to put in the time. And if you're not willing to do that, that is unfortunate. I'm sorry that this is your passion. But not everybody is cut to make it. And if that's the way that the industry is, then it's not going to change. Then you're just not cut for the industry, as sad as that is. But on the bright side, I know that there's so many indie studios out there right now that don't seem to be suffering from these afflictions and are still putting out fairly decent games on the regular, sometimes even putting out better games on the regular.
Right? It's pretty fucked up. So, and again, this is a big scathing statement. You say that we make you proud when we make a good game, we'll make us proud when times are tough. We know you can't because we've seen it before. So he's saying is, why is it that when we make something good, you say good job, but then you don't actually try to figure out the root cause of what happened or even help us at all when a game goes poorly? Instead, you just lay us off, right? It's kind of fucked up. I agree. Again, do you really think that the people who made Redfall sat there and they said, you know, today we decided we're going to make a bad game because there's just too many good ones out there? I mean, we made the Thief series, or not Thief, we made the Dishonored series, you know, we made Prey, those are good games. You know, we made Deathloop, that's kind of a debatable. Critics really liked it, other people didn't, but at least, you know, it's at least overall positively received. You know, we decided now we're just going to make a turd. We're going to sit down, we're going to put all this time and effort into making a really horrible game, right? I'm sure that's what they did. I mean, that's what all these game developers do, right? They just decide actively to make trash. Of course, right?
I'm sure that a lot of these studios don't want to make bad games. I think that goes without saying. Most people don't want to do a bad job. But when games take multiple years to develop at this point, DSP, that's not a gamble that I see a lot of people wanting to take. So when a studio like Arcane Austin produces a game like Deathloop, which everybody that I've talked to just kind of panned, and then they put out Redfall, a game that for all intents and purposes just collapsed instantly and had no legs, I'm not at all surprised that Xbox is telling them that they have to clock out and that their time is done. I'm sure sure it's hard to justify trying to invest all of the time and capital into those people's salary and all of the normal investments that go into game development on a game that you're not even sure is going to be good given the recent track record of a studio.
In fact, what's funny about that is, if you remember when Redfall came out last year, and everyone knew the game was an unfinished, horrible mess, okay? Let's be honest here. What is going on, Jasper? He's standing here staring at me. When the game came out, Phil Spencer himself was interviewed, and he said, Phil, you know, you own Bethesda now. Microsoft owns Bethesda. Bethesda owns Arcane. So how did this game come out like this? Everyone, you can play for 5 minutes, you know the game's not done. It's not polished. It's not finished. It's full of bugs. What happened here? And Phil Spencer's response was, you know, maybe we should have had a little bit more of a hands-on approach with that one. So let me get this straight. You bought a company. You dictated they put out a certain amount of games, a certain style, and then you literally never checked on any of the projects. You just let them do whatever they wanted with no guidance, no help. You just said, just go ahead and make games, right? Yeah.
Now, this is going to be an assumption on my end, but I don't think that Phil Spencer meant that they literally never checked in on it and they didn't ask any questions, they didn't give any guidance, and they just left them to do whatever. I would imagine that what he meant was that he didn't micromanage them, he didn't constantly hound them about this or that because they're a proven studio that has put out games before in the past that were fairly decent, and he thought that they were capable of making it happen. Which I would imagine, if you ask any normal person in a normal workplace, is kind of the ideal scenario. Your boss or management gives you a task that you should be capable of accomplishing, and then you go and get the job done to their satisfaction. Because when it comes to the case of Redfall, I don't think it was a lack of guidance. I don't think it was a lack of understanding the expectations. The game fundamentally just didn't work mechanically. I don't think that that comes from a lack of Xbox leadership. I think, unfortunately, that we're going to have to chalk that up to incompetence more than anything. But I do think that it's absolutely hilarious that DSP of all people is asking for more micromanaging when it comes to the games industry in these studios. He thinks so poorly about these heads like Phil Spencer, but he wants them to be actively telling all of these studios at all times what they're supposed to be doing. So when he's telling people what game they're supposed to be making and the game does poorly, it's his fault. When he doesn't tell people what game they're supposed to be making and it goes poorly, it's again his fault. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, I guess Bill Gates agrees.
Really, like if you're interviewing Phil Spencer, the CEO of Xbox Gaming, and the CEO, the guy in charge, says, oh, maybe we should have actually checked in on that one a little bit more. Is this guy a fucking idiot? Does he not understand that's literally his job? He's in charge. So when Redfall comes out and is a piece of steaming dog shit, it's not finished, it's broken, and everyone in the community is panning it because it's so bad, should it be Arcane that looks bad? No, it should be Phil fucking Spencer that looks bad, because he's the one who's responsible. He's the one in charge. He's the one who's steering the ship. Why did he not know that the game was unfinished? What the fuck does he do all day? Really? What do you do? If you're the CEO of Xbox Gaming, you're not checking on the fucking games your company makes, then what do you do? I want to know.
I'm curious as to why DSP doesn't want these studios to take any sort of responsibility at all. Because like I said, the mechanics that were in Redfall just flat out didn't work. How are you going to put that on Phil Spencer? The studio is the one that put the mechanics in the game and then didn't actually implement them properly. I understand that he's the head of Xbox Gaming and that all of the things that are beneath him are technically his responsibility. But sometimes you can just have subordinates that are incapable of doing a task that's given to them. And as much as it might make you sad, DSP, if people are incapable of doing a task that they said they were capable of doing, sometimes you have to let them go. The world really can be a cruel and unforgiving place. Luckily for DSP, he only has to leave his house once a week, so he doesn't have to actually experience that all that often.
Anyway, good lord. So that's what Dingo Bakaba said. He's the head of Arcane. He's very, very upset with this decision to basically lay off Arcane Austin. Okay. By the way, in a little bit of an extra aside here, Arcane Austin, before making Redfall and failing miserably, had actually worked on the first Dishonored and actually developed the 2017 version of Prey by itself. So Arcane made Prey. Prey was a good game. I'm just going to tell you guys, if you didn't play it, 2017's Prey is a very good game. It's got a really neat, interesting story. It's got fun gameplay elements. It's got a lot of horror elements that are done really, really well. Tons of content, spooky monsters, and a lot of different variations in the story depending on your choices and what secrets and things that you discover. It's a really great game. I'm pretty sad that this is now the end of the studio, honestly.
Well, it sounds like from all of the information that DSP has given us about Arcane Austin that they were better off as an independent studio before being under the massive umbrella that is Xbox. Maybe they should have stayed that way? Maybe this should even be a cautionary tale to all of the indie devs that are out there and all of the indie studios that are out there that you should not be selling out to these megacorps like Xbox.
Now, here we go. I gotta say this, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, I wish I could make this up, but Xbox head of studios, Matt Booty, wrote an internal email to the staff saying the following: "We are making these tough decisions to create capacity to increase investment in other parts of our portfolio and focus on our priority games." What fucking games? Right now, realistically, can you say, anyone out there who follows the gaming industry, what are the big games that Microsoft is making right now? Can you name a single fucking game? It ain't Halo. That failed. Is it Gears of War? We haven't heard from that in years, and the last one was good, but it's certainly not what it used to be in the original trilogy, right? What are the big games? It ain't Starfield. Starfield is a huge failure and flop, and no one fucking likes it, right? Like, what are they talking about? What fucking games?
And this question is just stupid. Just because you're not personally interested in some of the first-party Xbox games doesn't mean that other people aren't playing them, and definitely doesn't mean that they're not making money off of them. Not to mention all of the games that they confirm have in the works. Games like Gears 6, games like Fable. Weren't you excited about that new Indiana Jones game that's coming out, DSP? Isn't that an Xbox exclusive and first-party title? Weren't you just talking about how Xbox bought Activision Blizzard? Well, guess what? Now they have all of those games to take care of and maintain and make sure that they continue to be profitable. So let's not sit here and pretend like Xbox doesn't already have an assload of games to maintain and take care of while simultaneously developing how many more. Just because you're not interested in them doesn't mean that other people aren't, DSP.
Elder Scrolls, which we have no idea when it's coming out, and you have no idea of any time frame we have no information about? What the fuck is he talking about? We're laying off people to focus on our big games. You don't have any big games. You are the head of Xbox Studios, and you have no fucking games. You are an idiot. You are inept at what you do, and you should be fucking fired for writing that email.
And this right here is the peak of the performance, if you ask me. DSP starting out by being very sad and disheartened by the closure of all of these studios, and then directly calling out that certain people at these companies should be fired for nothing other than pretty much standard corporate behavior. And while I don't necessarily agree with any of the people that are in charge of these major companies, I'm also not going to sit here and ask for them to be fired. Instead, I'm just not going to support the games they make. I'm just not going to support their business practices. And I eagerly await the day that DSP does exactly the same thing, where he stops buying this AAA slop and stops talking about it on his stupid pre-cum pisscast. Let them rot, DSP. Quit bringing them up. Quit letting them make you so angry, and quit funding their bad decisions that you very clearly don't agree with.
Really? In fact, I'm going to say this, and you can quote me on this, and you can go ahead and clip this clip, all right? When these things are now happening, it's one thing if there's one round of layoffs. This is what? The third? Okay, since Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, it's at this point becoming very clear that Microsoft was not ready to buy Activision Blizzard. Because if you're buying a giant company, you don't then lay off the equivalent number of employees from your existing company to make room for them. This is insanely bad management, all right? If you're going to make an incredible acquisition like that, you have to be ready for it. If you did that acquisition and you weren't ready for it, and now all these people are losing their jobs, there's only one solution, all right? The people who really should be losing their jobs are the people in management. Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, and all the other executives who championed the Activision Blizzard acquisition and now have absolutely no way to make profits with the company besides laying people off, they should be the next on the chopping block.
And this is such a simpleton's way to look at businesses and acquisitions. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility that you purchase a company and envelop it into your mega umbrella and realize there's a lot of redundancies and a lot of people employed that no longer need to be employed because their position is already filled by someone better. And I would imagine that that's some of the decision making that gets done when going into these acquisitions. It would be part of the cost-benefit analysis. When you're looking at this company, you're also seeing all of the places where you could save money after purchasing. And this is in no no way a defense of the practice. I'm sure it really sucks that all of these people have to get let go because they're redundant. But that's again just the reality of the situation for so many people, and you have to live in reality. There's no other choice. Refusal to do so will leave you in a constant state like DSP, believing your own delusions for the worst. So while yes, there absolutely would be a lot of money saved by getting rid of the head of these businesses, somebody has to run the business and be held responsible to these shareholders. And even when you think that these people are doing a bad job, the shareholders don't seem to think so, when they're the only people that have to be happy at the end of the day. That's why instead of complaining online, you should actually speak with your wallet and quit funding their bad practices.
Immediately, they should lose their jobs. And they should have people who actually know what the fuck they're doing move in to right the ship. Because right now, you got Captain Phil Spencer and first in command Matt Booty, and they literally have one hand on each side of the fucking wheel, driving the ship into the cliffside, and fucking splinters of wood are shooting everywhere, and the boat's capsizing, and everyone's abandoning ship, and everyone's like, oh well, just keep them in charge, that's fine. In fact, give them another boat. Buy another boat to put them on, right? Well, are you fucking crazy? They don't know what they're doing. It's obvious at this point. The problem is people like Phil Spencer, okay, are sadly charismatic, right? Phil Spencer's a charismatic dude. When you see him and he's wearing not a suit and tie, but he's wearing a cool jacket and a t-shirt, he looks like one of us. He's a gamer bro, right? So you get that mentality that he's your friend, he's your buddy who you game with, and you like the guy. It doesn't matter though. He's a horrible leader. So is Matt Booty writing this insane fucking email that literally has no factual basis. You have no big games to put your time and efforts into, you fucking moron.
This is once again just another shining example of DSP being a mark, because he's the only person I've heard ever talk this way about Phil Spencer. He's the only one that's genuinely picking up on the clothes that he's wearing and the way that he speaks, instead of just, looking at the video games that are being produced and the business practices that are being practiced. I don't think that Phil Spencer is the charismatic, silver-tongued snake charmer that DSP makes him out to be. And I didn't even know who Matt Booty was before DSP decided to bring him up in this segment, so I don't think that people are buying into the Matt Booty hype. Now, when it comes to the booty hype of Cammy, I have seen a lot of people falling for that one, but that's a story for a different day.
So these people should not be in charge. It's that simple. We need new blood to jump up, and we need new blood to take command of these companies. Because right now, the Yves Guillemot's and that evil fucking CEO of EA with his stupid douchey comb-over hipster Seattle haircut, and the fucking Phil Spencers and Matt Booties, these guys, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're the reason the industry is failing. When Phil Spencer is interviewed, and they say, so why are you doing these rounds of layoffs? He says, because the game industry is currently in a decline. Phil, you are the game industry. You're in charge of fucking Xbox. You're the reason for the decline.
Bro, what the hell are you even talking about anymore? You can't force an industry to be profitable. If people just aren't purchasing the product regardless of what the quality actually is, then it's just not going to be a venture worth going into. It's not going to be an investment that's worth your time. I thought that we were going to get through this whole video without doing this, but I guess that's just not the case. So give me a second. Okay, let's say that you owned a sandwich shop and you just so happen to sell the best sandwiches in the city. Unfortunately for you though, your country is going through a huge economical recession. And people just don't have the money like they used to. And unfortunately for you and your business, nobody is showing up to buy sandwiches like they once were, leading to you having to fire some of your staff because it's just not profitable to keep them employed. When asked about the layoffs, you tell people, hey, the food industry and most industries in general are on the decline. Is your response then going to be, you're the sandwich shop owner, you are the food industry? I don't think so, dog. Because that just doesn't make any goddamn sense. And given the current economical situation going on in the United States where inflation is high and people are tight on money, I'm not surprised that so many people are foregoing video games and they just aren't selling the way that they used to be, especially during COVID, when the games industry was absolutely booming and hiring people left, right, and center to try and keep up. Honestly, it was inevitable that these people were going to be laid off at some point, but DSP is coping and seething regardless.
So don't punish your employees. Fucking quit. Punish yourself, you fucking mouth drooler. You're awful at what you do. You are ruining gaming because you're inept. Quit. Let someone else step up and fix Xbox. Because it ain't going to be you and it ain't going to be Corporal Booty. It's got to be somebody else. It's obvious at this point you have no fucking clue what you're doing. Stop ruining things for everyone under you who's a hard worker who deserves a living. And you're taking that away from them because you're making big moves, buying companies, but you're not making any fucking games. You're a games company that doesn't make games.
Well, aside from purchasing companies, all of those same complaints can be levied right back at DSP. He is ruining the games industry by being a prime example of the worst kind of gamer to cater to. He doesn't know what he's doing, and he's making everybody else have a miserable time because of it. And I know that this is kind of silly, but he also doesn't happen to make any video games. So all in all, he is just kind of terrible at his job and doesn't know what he's doing as well. It's always fascinating how all of the criticisms that he has for all of these people who are far more successful than him actually apply to him as well. I guess it's just a good thing that mirrors are banned in the Snortfort, or DSP would be having an absolutely miserable time 6 out of the 7 days of the week.
I'm a little upset about this topic. I don't know if you guys can tell. Well, one thing's for sure. After today, I don't think anyone's going to call me an Xbot or Xbox fanboy. I'm pretty upset, honestly. And I just don't even know what's going to happen anymore. You know what I'm saying? I just don't even know. How can you even exist? They're literally doing nothing right at all. I don't think that they have done a single correct action in the last, year.
And listen to how pressed he is over the entire subject. DSP, they're just video games that you don't even have an interest in playing at this point. What do you mean, how can you exist? You can exist like you normally do every single day and just play other video games made by other studios. It's all the same shit at the end of the day. Have fun, don't take it that seriously, and enjoy your life. Have you ever actually even tried that? Or is your sole mission statement for the day every single day just getting online and bitching about everything and being miserable?
And it's continuing. You know, Game Pass is amazing. Is Game Pass the problem? Is the insustainability of Game Pass what's really going on here? If that's the case, just fess up and fucking cancel Game Pass and be like, sorry, we fucked up. We're sorry that you all like Game Pass. It's a great value for gamers, but we fucked up. We can't keep the company afloat anymore. We fucked it up bad, right? If that's the case, that's fine. Admit it, right?
And I thought that this was a very strange conclusion for him to come to, because he's always talking about how big of a fan he is of Game Pass. Is he really acknowledging the fact that he would rather have these games that he's not interested in playing over a service that provides a bunch of different games for a low price that he actively uses? That seems like a strange exchange to make when you're not the one to benefit. I really don't know what he's trying to gain out of saying this other than continuing to stand on his soapbox and pretending that he cares whether or not these studios go out of business.
But I don't know, man. This drives me insane. I don't know why we have these people in power anymore, you know? I think what it is, if you take a look, we had Don Matrick before Phil Spencer, and Don Matrick was not the gamer bro. Don Matrick was the quintessential silver spoon in the mouth douchebag rich guy, right? Oh, Xbox One. If you don't have an always online connection, we have a console for you, the Xbox 360. Oh, you want to own your games? Too bad. Everything's digital. Everything's tied in, and here's the future. And in reality, a lot of the things that Don Matrick was saying during the launch of the Xbox One wasn't incorrect. He was just a complete douchebag, scumbag asshole about it. And therefore, that's why people hated him, and that's why Xbox One tanked at launch. It's his fault, because he's just a piece of shit, which is why he was promptly ousted out of the company, and then he went and ruined Zynga, and now he basically, I guess, probably runs a gas station somewhere or something. Who knows, right? But
And of course, DSP had to take the opportunity to bring up Don Matrick, somebody who hasn't been relevant in quite some time, and most definitely isn't relevant in the current year of our Lord 2024, and has nothing to do with the current situation that we're actually talking about. He just wanted to throw another CEO-style person under the bus for seemingly no reason? I mean, Don Matrick definitely messed up things in the past, but I really don't know what he has to do with the current situation that we're talking about right now.
in the case of Phil Spencer, this guy is kind of the antithesis of that. When you look at Phil Spencer, you don't think rich guy. You don't think douchebag, silver spoon in the mouth. But at the same time, is he doing any better, honestly? No. What has he really done? Tell me the positive stuff that Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, and these people are doing in charge of Xbox that's, really keeping the company afloat. It's just failure after failure. How do you have an incredibly popular game in Halo Infinite and then botch it within 4 months and no one plays it anymore, right? It's like every time they have an opportunity for success, they blow it. I just don't get it, right? So, I don't know, man. This is very upsetting to me. Listen, I like Xbox. I like the gaming industry. It's my job as well as my hobby. And to hear the people who are talented losing their jobs because management doesn't know how to run the company, it makes me very upset. Really. Especially Tango Gameworks, they just made Hi-Fi Rush, which was a great game, and they were on the right track to writing their ship and making better games,
He talks about it as if he's in contact with anybody from Tango Gameworks, as if he has some sort of inside knowledge about what they were working on in their internal culture. When the reality is he doesn't actually know shit about the studio at all. He's just under the assumption that because they made a couple of games that he enjoyed, that they were absolutely on the right track to continue to make games that were going to be profitable in the future for Xbox. And of course, I know that he's not interested in whether or not Xbox makes any money, which I'm not either, but unfortunately for everybody else, Xbox is, and that's the only metric that they're actually going by.
Exactly. Don Finucci says Phil Spencer currently has no signal. He's on his mega yacht in Belize. He can't hear you. There you go. Well, yes, of course. Bader says, well, Hi-Fi Rush was not financially successful by Microsoft standards. Yes, because they didn't advertise it. Remember what they did? They didn't even announce it. They just shadow dropped the game. And that game developers actually voiced their discontent with that model after the game launched. They said, we're happy that people are liking it now, but this game was ready like last year, and we don't know why Xbox didn't announce it. Like, they had a perfect opportunity during that Xbox event last year in 2022 to get hype for it and get people excited for it, and they literally just kept the fucking game a complete secret and shadow dropped it in early 2023 to no hoopla, no fanfare, just, oh, it's on Game Pass now, check it out. So why did you think it would sell? You see what I'm saying? Gee, Evil Within 2, we hope it's a giant seller. Oops, no marketing. Gee, I wonder why it didn't sell. But these are management decisions. These are not game developer decisions. These are management decisions. These are Phil Spencer and Matt Booty decisions. And they're fucking up at every turn.
DSP just lives in such a different reality than me because so often I don't see games marketing. I'm not interested in it, and I don't know when all of these big games are coming out, but instead what happens is when they release, they're on the front page of Steam or something, and then I check them out and pick them up if I'm interested in playing them. I don't need commercials shoved down my throat. I don't need you to constantly be marketing video games to me. In fact, I'm more interested in games that aren't constantly being advertised to me because that's a very quick way for me to not want to check out your IP. And DSP has had the exact same stance on other products before unrelated to video games, going as far as to say that he goes out of his way to not purchase products that are constantly advertised to him out of spite. But of course, when it comes to the games industry, it's a completely different thing, and we need to be constantly reminded all of the time that these games exist so we don't forget to purchase them. Make that one make sense, boss.
And that's the point I'm trying to make here. Stop punishing the people who work the hardest to put out content for your company, and instead punish the people who truly are making the awful decisions at the company day in and day out, over and fucking over at this point. Okay? At this point, and you know, by the way, not just them, you gotta look at the heads of the other companies too, the fucking Todd Howards, who they all were banking on Starfield being a giant success, and it is totally not. I mean, it's not a huge failure, but it's definitely not anywhere near the level they thought it was going to get. It is not culturally relevant. It is not even in the major discussions of people when it comes to big RPGs. It's just a flop, you know? And these people need to be held accountable for their fucking actions, and they're not. We have enough people now who have lost their jobs, thousands of people losing jobs because of a few small people who don't know what the fuck they're doing. Why are they still in charge?
And of course, DSP managed to bring up Todd Howard as well, as if he's relevant to the conversation that's happening right now. And once again, DSP is trying to remove any sort of responsibility from all of the individuals who work at these studios, these people who are putting together the mechanics and actually coding this shit. Sure, your boss might not have the best idea of what the game is supposed to be, but you could at least polish the mechanics that you're working on so that they work properly and are an experience that people want to have. But no, let's just blame it all on Todd Howard, as if he programmed and designed the entire game from the ground up by himself, and everybody else who works in the studio was just sitting around, I guess, getting paid.
If you're a shareholder of Xbox, Microsoft, what are you doing? Are you stupid? Do you not understand that these people are dumb and don't know what they're doing? Get them the fuck out. Shareholders have power. Get these motherfuckers out of there. They don't know how to do anything. If I had stock in fucking Xbox, I sure as hell would be trying to get these fuck faces out of there. Jeez. All right. That's enough of me ranting about it today, guys. I knew this was going to go long because I'm so upset I can't even click the right screen. Look at this. Where am I? Hold on. Here I am. I'm so upset I can't even click the right transition. I hate this shit. I hate this industry when this happens. It makes me so upset. These people do not deserve to be jobless. They don't. These people are hard workers. They're trying to make good stuff. And it's the management that's bad. Punish those who are responsible, not the fucking, people on the ground level.
I love how he says that he's done talking about it and then continues to talk about it anyway. So there's a little bit more to this clip, but unlike DSP, I'm actually done talking about it. I'm no longer interested. But what I am interested in is looking at some of the comments from my last video. So of course, it's big ups to the 60 skulls. Jade094 says, big ups to the troll who sent him that email, hook, line, and sinker. So it came to my attention after I rendered the video, unfortunately, that I left out a part of that last video. I had every intention of informing everybody that the person who sent DSP that email about these detractor ops that are going on behind the scenes posted the email that they had sent on Twitter, and Duty absolutely covered it. So I apologize for leaving that out, and of course big ups Duty for covering it. Hoskew says, God, so much vicarious embarrassment when he said ball suckers. I knew it was corny as a kid. This guy's 42. And I'll even go one step further, and beyond ball suckers, all of the genitalia talk, all of the toilet humor and the scat humor, all of it is not only unnecessary, but incredibly unfunny. Not just that it's not funny, but it is actually negative in comedy. And it's only made all the worse by the fact that, yes, DSP is 42 years old and still hasn't figured out that most people don't find that shit funny, especially nowadays. And Iron Aesthetic says, now guys, we've been found out. Darkside Detective has figured out where the next detractor meeting is, so we have to move it. Otherwise, how will we be able to ruin his life? Luckily for all of the detractors that were actually invited to the meeting, please check your inbox. I've already scoped out the next location for our meeting. It's going to be at the top floor of Millennium Tower. So please, like I said, all detractors, check your inbox. I'm taking RSVPs because I need to know how much food we need to get catered in. And with that, I want to thank everybody who watched the video, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other detractor content and dive deeper into that. Snortex.